Welcome to this video module on unconscious bias. In this module, we'll be exploring what creates unconscious bias, why it is harmful, different types of bias, and how we can prevent it. Unconscious bias is when we allow our attitudes, feelings, or stereotypes, of which we are not aware, to impact our judgment or understanding of other people. Research tells us that beliefs and values gained from family, culture, and a lifetime of experiences heavily influence how we view and evaluate ourselves and others. We simplify the world around us by creating categories to which we can assign people and their behaviors. For example, we may identify with the town in which we live, the sports teams we support, or our profession. These categories can have a link to self-esteem and our self-identity. Equally, we put those around us in categories. They may be in the same ones as us or different ones. Questions to discuss. What categories do you put yourself into at work and at home? What categories do you put others into, either consciously or subconsciously? Pause the video now to discuss these questions and record the answers in your workbook. Press play when you're ready to resume. Our unconscious mind makes shortcuts based on these categories to make almost instantaneous decisions about everything around us. In today's multifaceted society, this can result in decisions being made and us displaying behaviors based on bias without us realizing it. These biases can have a significant impact in workplaces, affecting how people relate to each other and ultimately shaping who gets recruited or promoted. Some of the most powerful categories are those based on race, sex, disability, and sexual orientation. Having categories in our subconscious can result in a them and us attitude, which can lead to prejudice and discrimination. This idea of categorization is also known as stereotyping. A stereotype is when we make generalized beliefs about a group or its members. An obvious example is the idea of job stereotypes, where there may be preconceived attitudes about a particular occupation and people who are employed in that occupation. For example, if you talk about a nurse, you may picture a female, or if you talk about a builder, you picture a man. When those outside of that stereotype are selected for such roles, they can receive greater scrutiny as they are in a minority and under more pressure to perform, whereas those within the stereotype could be more likely to have any failings or poor performance excused. Questions to discuss. What stereotypes exist that you are aware of? What stereotypes have you experienced, witnessed in your current previous workplaces? Pause the video now to discuss these questions and record the answers in your workbook. Press play when you're ready to resume. Stereotypes can lead us to make decisions that are faulty. For example, a manager may choose not to interview a candidate with a foreign name. This unfair negative attitude towards groups or persons perceived to be a member of that group is called prejudice. Most countries have granted legal protection through their human rights and employment laws to certain groups. These groups are identified by protected characteristics and may include age, disability, gender reassignment, race, religion or belief, sex, sexual orientation, marriage and civil partnership, and pregnancy and maternity. Discrimination in the workplace is based on certain prejudices and occurs when an employee is treated unfavorably because of the protected characteristic. Discrimination can be overt or direct, for example, favoring and giving opportunities to one employee over another. In our organizations, however, we also need to look out for discrimination that is indirect. Maybe not something that we do or say, but something that is built into our policies or processes. For example, refusing to employ a person that wears certain religious clothing as this does not fit the company's uniform policy, when the requirements could be adapted. Questions to discuss. What are the protected characteristics where you are? What policies does your organization have in place to ensure there is no direct or indirect discrimination? Pause the video now to discuss these questions and record the answers in your workbook. Press play when you're ready to resume. While our unconscious bias can lead to stereotyping and prejudicial thoughts, we can also choose to use higher-level thought processes to overcome our prejudices. We can choose to filter our thoughts and challenge them. For more on controlling our natural reactions, watch our 1-minute video on amygdala hijack. The first step to interrupting bias and negative stereotyping is awareness. Let's take a look at some of the most common types of unconscious bias, along with tactics and opportunities you can use to ensure workplace decisions aren't being guided by them. Affinity bias is the tendency people have to connect with others who share similar interests, experiences, and backgrounds. The opportunity. When selecting candidates for hire or for promotion, best practice is to use clear criteria that relate to the job or position rather than someone that will fit in with the team because they have similar interests. The halo horns effect is the tendency to put someone on a pedestal or think more highly of them after learning something impressive about them, or conversely, viewing someone negatively after learning something unfavorable about them. The opportunity. Consider why you have a negative or positive perception. Ask yourself if your perception stems from unconscious stereotyping based on race, gender, or ethnicity, for instance. Beauty bias is a social behavior where people believe that attractive people are more successful, competent, and qualified. This is similar to other biases related to physical features such as height. It has been demonstrated that tall people are more likely to be successful at interviews, whereas people with facial disfigurements are the most discriminated against group. The opportunity. Take the time to get to know people and listen to them, rather than forming an opinion based on appearances. Confirmation bias refers to the tendency to look for or favor information that confirms beliefs we already hold. For example, you might presume a candidate is ideal for a job because of their specific employment or academic history, and seek to confirm they are ideal rather than ask neutral questions. The opportunity. Practice active listening, truly listening to understand, rather than listening to confirm your view. Use this to identify your blind spots and build your awareness of your own areas of unconscious bias. The bandwagon effect occurs when an individual's views are swayed or influenced by the views of others. This is sometimes called groupthink. This is because people have a tendency to act similarly to the people around them, regardless of their own personal beliefs. They may not want to rock the boat or to present a different view. The opportunity. This is one to watch for in team meetings and decision-making in any setting. Pausing before decisions are made and allowing the chance for everyone to speak can make a difference. Good facilitation skills can help. Asking team members to play the devil's advocate or to argue for a different view can be safe ways of letting the team know it's okay to disagree or to present a different view. There are lots of other types of biases that can occur. The important thing is to be aware of the situations where your unconscious bias could affect your behavior or get in the way of your ability to make the best decisions. Here are some pointers on how we can reduce our unconscious bias. Be aware. The first step in unconscious bias reduction is being aware of what it is and how it can affect others. This awareness begins to tip our unconscious into the conscious, where we can be completely aware and begin to manage the bias and its effects. Question yourself and others. To reduce the effects of unconscious bias, question biases in yourself and raise awareness in others. Ask the following questions. Is my opinion factually true? What evidence do I have? Create inclusive meeting practices. If you are managing a meeting, you can play a significant role in reducing the effects of unconscious bias, both within the meeting and in its outcomes. Ask for the opinions of everyone at the meeting. Remember not to always draw upon the same people's opinions consistently, but equally do not discount their opinion on this basis. Ensure the final decision is balanced and not influenced by the power a single individual may hold. Be open to challenges from all parties by asking for counter opinions and examples. Be open to challenging others. It can be difficult to have and manage conversations about instances of unconscious bias. Supportive phrases that can be used to help you approach the subject and ensure a constructive outcome include: acknowledge feelings. I understand you have a belief that an older candidate will not be right for this role. Clarify to avoid assumptions. Am I missing something, as I am still unclear as to the reason for this? Explore evidence. When you say you feel the team would be unhappy, help me understand what you mean by that. Solve for moving forward. What would a better situation look like for you? This model of acknowledging, clarifying, exploring, and solving will enable you to have constructive conversations and support others to question bias. Questions to discuss. We're going to look at an unconscious bias action plan for you. There are 3 points here to consider: checking for unconscious bias, policies and procedures, and challenging prejudicial behavior. Pause the video now to complete the action plan in your workbook. Press play when you're ready to resume. Congratulations! You've completed this module on our journey exploring unconscious bias. Before we close off, let's have a quick recap. In this module, we covered what creates unconscious bias, why it is harmful, different types of bias, and how we can prevent it. Thank you for joining us in our journey exploring unconscious bias. We acknowledge special thanks to TalentStorm for the content and research provided for this video. We look forward to seeing you on the next Learning Planet video module.